Right. Good afternoon and welcome to the House Environment Committee. We are taking up H723, an act related to posting of land. Our Legislative Council. Welcome back, Bradley.
Bradley Shulman with the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I'll be taking you through the latest draft of House Bill 723, the latest amendment. This draft number 2.1 dated 3/10/2026. Okay, so this draft takes out the purple paint. That's the biggest change from the last draft, and we'll also see that it adjusts the de minimis as well. So we're on page 1. Page 1, line 12. So these changes are conforming changes. You'll see we change his or her to the owner's land. We made hunting, trapping, taking of game or wild animals consistent throughout the statute. You'll notice the existing language sometimes use shooting, sometimes use hunting. So we just chose hunting, trapping, taking of game or wild animals to be conclusive and encompassing of what we're talking about and consistent throughout. Changing to page 2. This is just more language just to conform for readability. Notice signs shall be erected upon or near the boundaries of the lands to be effective with notices at or each corner and not over 400 feet apart along the boundaries thereof. So conforms to the law as it is. This is a change. Notice signs shall be maintained at all times. So we're taking out the date requirement. And then again, just conform change for clarity, but notice sign shall be of standard sign and size and design as the commissioner shall specify. The next subsection C is the posting requirement. We are clarifying that the posting shall be valid and enforceable for 365 days after the date the posting is recorded. Subsection D clarifies that it is required for land to be posted and recorded in accordance with the section to be enclosed for purposes herein. And then this is a change just to clarify the de minimis language to specify the ways in which a property owner could be in or make a mistake in posting. Technical defect in the placement, spacing, color, wording, or dimensions of the notice sign shall not invalidate notice under this section. If the notice signs clearly communicate to a reasonable person that entry for hunting, fishing, trapping, or taking of game or wild animals is prohibited or allowed only by permission. And then this following line has been in previous drafts, but it's also changed in the current statute. Property owners with actual notice that their notice signs deviate from the requirements of the section shall take reasonable steps to ensure their notice signs comply with the section. The effective date was changed from July 1st, 2026 to on passage. And that's the bill.
Thank you. Why is it actual notice, not just notice? Actual notice.
Actual notice means that the property owner actually knows that that the signs are defective in some way. Leaving the word actual out of the statute. I can't think of a situation where functionally that would be different.
I just noticed it popped out. Maybe I asked that question before. I can't remember.
No, but I can't think of an example on the top of my head where that would be functionally different. Just the word actual means that the property owner has to actually know.
Yeah, okay.
As opposed to constructively know or should have known. They have to actually know. So maybe perhaps a situation where there's an incredible a tornado comes through and knocks down a bunch of trees on a property owner's property, and they could think that one might constructively know that the notice signs might have been damaged, but they don't actually know that because they can't get to the signs. So they might not have actual notice, they might have constructive notice.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Representative Tagliavia.
Would actual notice be either verbal notice or written notice?
Yeah, this language doesn't specify verbal or written. It's just actually no.
Representative Austin.
Yeah, just to clarify, the posting shall be valid and enforceable for 365 days. So does a person, a landowner, come in every year and register but not have to put the dates on the? Okay, so that every year that suffices for them to just going to the town clerk, paying a fee and re-registering.
That's correct.
Representative Pritchard.
Page 2, line 3, legible, what was the reference to that? Why was it removed? I mean, I would think the signs have to be legible.
Yeah, so legible was the notion is that legible is incorporated into maintained. So in order to be legible, it has to be maintained. Change that language to just make sure that we're looking at that the rest of the sentence modifies the actual notice sign, not just the legibility of the sign. So we're looking at the sign as a whole, not just necessarily the legibility of the sign.
Okay, and why did we change must to shall?
That is conforming with just statutory, how we use the words in statutory language. So that's not a meaningful difference. That's just how we use language in statutes now.
Okay.
All right, members have further questions for Bradley. Representative North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rather, the last sentence that we're really not, the last sentence of subsection B, top of page 2, that we're really not changing other than the notice signs. Shall be of standard size and design as the commissioner shall. Does that mean you can't like kind of create your own sign? I mean,
Yeah, the notice signs have to be of the standard size and design that the commissioner shall specify. So you could potentially create your own sign, but it just has to be of the standard sign that the commissioner specifies. So the commissioner has some specifications about how big it needs to be. It's bigger than 8.5 by 12, but how big it needs to be. They have some examples on their website that you can use, but you could design your own sign if it met those specifications.
okay, great. Thank you very much.
Representative Chapin and then Pritchard.
I'm just, the technical deficit language is a list in placement, spacing, color, wording, or dimensions. And it's not including those things, it's only those things.
Sorry, what page and line number are you on?
Page 2, line
19.
1920, technical deficit language. I'm just curious about, and I missed a couple days, so tell me if you guys already discussed this, but I'm concerned that might be too narrow of a list. I presume it reflects what's in the earlier subsection. We heard a lot of testimony about ripped signs, shredded signs. And I'm wondering if you feel like this includes ripped when signs are ripped or damaged.
If the rip or damage means that a sign is defective in those ways, then yes. If a rip or damage means that the sign is defective in some other way, then no. So you are correct that this does narrow the exceptions. If the committee wanted to broaden the exceptions, it would we could put a word like a technical defect, including in placement in signs, and so forth.
So I think what you're saying is definitely this is a discrete list, so we could add the word including, and that would really change and give more leeway if there was something that didn't quite, or even disagreement about what these words exactly mean. But you're saying that if the rip or disintegration or chewed upness of a sign affects the placement, spacing, color, wording, or dimensions, which is the fact that the sign, then it would be included in the technical deficit. But if it's just disintegrated to not be there, I guess I'm just, I didn't really fully understand your answer to my question.
Yeah, if the defect design is that the sign doesn't exist, then that might not be a technical defect. That might be the sign does not exist, and it'd be up to the enforcing officer if they would determine that the property is enclosed. Based on a strict reading of the statute, if the sign doesn't exist, so if you have no sign, you have signs every 400 feet. But one of those signs at the 400th foot goes away, is completely gone, then perhaps the land is not enclosed because you're not posting every 400 feet. And that's not necessarily a technical defect. That's the whole sign is gone.
So I thought we were trying to capture that in this technical deficit because, I got something like 250 emails about this bill with examples of things that had happened on people's property. And by far the most common was that either they have a couple signs that are ripped either maybe by a human or by an animal, or are now on the ground, shredded up by an animal or a human. And I'd say at least half of the emails I got reference that particular issue. So if we're saying that a sign that's been ripped up and left on the ground is not included in here, then I'm concerned. I'd like that to be when one sign is missing or shredded and not in its correct placement. I personally would really like to include that scenario very clearly in here, one way or another.
And that's language that you could potentially consider in that regard is, an unintentionally missing or damaged sign, or having a list saying including but not limited to these things, that might capture that. I think the previous language was much broader and spoke to, I believe the language was unintentional deviations from the requirements of the statute shall not be grounds for, and so forth.
So what happened to that language?
I think the committee, the thrust of the committee seemed like they were more comfortable with the specifications. And so I changed that based on instructions from the committee, but I can change it back to be broader as well.
Yeah, just a question. So in the list of the various technical defects, placement, spacing, color, wording, or dimensions, and maybe it's a question for the warden, but it seemed to me like those were some of the things that tended to invalidate a posting. So
I
those were
think
sort
so,
of the
yeah.
things we're looking at. So you could keep that, so you could say something like a defect, including in placement, spacing, color, wording, dimensions, or a missing or damaged sign, right? Shall not invalidate notice. So you could have the list of those things as well. And then add, that's like a missing or damaged sign, like it's ripped, or missing one falls off or gets ripped off, right?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly valid. And it's also possible to go back to the former language, which was unintentional or accidental deviations from the posting requirements, and the subsection shall not invalidate the sign for purposes of enclosure, or whatever the language was specifically.
Yeah, that wasn't my intention.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think I misread the intention of the committee then when I received instruction. So my apologies.
Yeah, so others thoughts on this topic before we change it back? Representative Pritchard and then Austin.
A couple of things I just want to make sure. So the warden will be the decider of the technical defect.
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like, if I'm looking at this right, it sounds like there is no time where you have to revisit the signs. You don't have to visit the signs on a yearly basis or ever, other than to maintain them. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So you have to make sure that the signs are in conformity with the statute. You get some wiggle room, to put it lightly, from here. But you do have the obligation to make sure that signs are maintained and legible.
And legible?
Or maintained and legible.
Okay.
So maintained means legible,
Yes.
but yes.
Well, does it really? Does it specifically mean that? And the reason I ask is because I can tell you on the yellow Tyvek signs, if you were to go 4 years with the weather, those signs would be illegible. And if you have your whole property posted with all those signs, that haven't been visited in 4 years, they will be all illegible. So what does that mean? Does that, I'm worried about laxness and compliance. Is what I'm worried about. Obviously, you know, I think it's important that we extend this, but I don't want this to be so broad that any reason is a valid reason for, well, having the land, the property enclosed. I mean, is that a reasonable concern? I think it kind of is.
I think legible means maintained means legible. But you know, if a reasonable person might disagree with that, potentially, but I think maintained means legible.
Representative Boston.
Yeah, I know, there's a penalty, a criminal penalty for tearing or ripping up a sign. But is there a way, I mean, this is just my thought, we can add Fish and Wildlife points to that as well as a penalty?
You could.
So kind of doing two things here at once. We can have discussion and ask committee about those things. I actually was trying to ask committee about the change that Representative Chapin before we moved on to other things that brought up. So I guess I'm looking for input. I would support going back to language that was a little more inclusive or broad under the defect in the what we've been calling the de minimis. Your tree happened to fall down in the middle of the 365 days. You know, really? So I don't know. I think your land was posted. And, you know, we've also had conversations in this committee that someone who really wants to be clear is going to put their signs less than 400 feet apart. So presumably they'd still have a sign that was within 200 or 300 feet, but I guess I'm looking for thoughts on that one piece. We got to move this on and make some decisions and wrap this conversation up. Representative Hoyt.
I would support going back to the broader language. I mean, I think that was, you know, I never really had an issue with that in the first place. So, you know, I think it would probably, it would be something I would support.
You just need to, I asked to take the purple paint out and that was included purple paint language. So obviously we leave the paint out of that. Representative Tagliavia.
With respect to this wording, I'm in favor of wording that will give the warden the discretion they obviously have the training and the ability to do to allow the landowners, like Representative Chapin said, the peace of mind and know that when a warden gets called out, that there's going to be some sort of enforcement action based on, you know, reasonableness. We're talking about people who are supposed to be handling themselves in an ethical manner. We can't legislate ethics, but I'm afraid if we put too many words in, if it's not listed, then the warden is not going to be able to enforce the posting. And I think that's the main thrust of why we keep coming back to this.
Representative North.
I was a proponent of the previous wording this time.
Okay. We'll go back to the previous wording. And then in order of appearance, thoughts on legible and maintained and what Representative Pritchard has brought up. Representative Chapin.
I guess I would say I don't dispute that maybe maintain includes legibility, but that sometimes we build suspenders and belts or whatever that phrase is into our legislating. And I think that this is a word, I would hate to take out a word that people are used to having in the statute that and then cause confusion by that. I would prefer to just leave we might want to rearrange that sentence as Leg Council is explaining, because actually the sentence's purpose is about maintenance. So I think we should add another sentence about legibility.
If I may, could it say notice signs shall be legible and maintained at all times a year? Maintained and legible at all times a year.
About that, like.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't work as well. No. Okay, we can.
I wonder if there's a different place for legible to go to maintain. We all expect them to be legible, but.
Representative North and Hoyt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would suggest that the next sentence defines what the criteria are. There's signs shall be of standard size and design as the commissioner shall specify, so their design specify the wording that has to be out. But
Yeah.
I was about to use the word legible, I was trying to stop myself.
Standard size and design would be legible.
Yeah. His criteria implies, I would say, implies legibility because it's got a standard design with wording on it.
Could we just add legible and of a standard size and design that the commissioner shall specify?
If we feel the need for having the word legible in there, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't think it's necessary, but not opposed to it.
If I may. Could we also say, maybe in the previous sentence, notice signs shall be legible and shall be maintained at all times? Does that work?
Well, I guess I'm curious what that does to our section D, if the flexibility or the de minimis, like, what if they're not perfect? I think that was, we were trying to be clear that over the course of a year, sign could have something happen to it. Representative Austin.
Yeah, I'm good with maintained. Thank you, move legible.
Comfortable taking it out. I was just trying to find a place to keep it in a different way, but
They're just-
I agree that sentence does not, I don't think legible any longer works in that sentence with our de minimis language.
Okay. I'm hearing that folks don't necessarily think we need to make a change to that sentence. Is that reflective of the majority here?
Okay with the wording.
As long as that's part of the criteria, which what I'm understanding is you're saying maintain takes care of that. I'm fine with it. But
So maybe within the commissioner specifications, they should have the word legible.
yeah. The other thing, I don't think it addresses, and I just want to make sure because it was a concern of some people, a couple of constituents of mine, is that there's specific wording. We had talked about this to not allow hunting, trapping, and fishing. And and one of my constituents posted all her land only to find out that she didn't have the proper wording, so it mattered. So I want to make sure that folks are aware of that, so they don't spend money on signs that are irrelevant. And I think it has to be specific, does it not?
I think the
To meet
commissioner,
the statute.
I think the commissioner has specified that in rule, and those rules can be found in, with the Secretary of State, but also on the commissioner's website where it
His
shows.
signs then will be the ones that the particular verbiage will comply with the statute.
Yeah,
Okay,
the website
That-
shows, and yes.
okay.
One thing I noticed on the website though, is it says the hunting, fishing, trapping, but it doesn't say, it says also no trespassing, which is not, it's often not both. So they need to have a sample of both. Well, we're getting really close to perfection, you can tell. Other, other questions about this discussion? Representative Austin.
I just want to get that. Use.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Wildlife.
The next-
I feel like, it sounds like we're talking to the warden, very few times are people caught. Because it takes so long for a warden, not because they're not doing their job, but just in terms of the area they need to cover to get there. When someone reports someone that's trespassing, so enforcement is a concern of mine as well, and I'm hoping that we can also attach, and I don't know what the points would be, but some fish and wildlife points for carry down the sign.
Remind us the violation for tearing down a sign now. It's pretty minimal.
$25 to $100.
Yeah. Representative Hoyt.
Is you may know, I don't know, does the technical Fish and Wildlife Technical Corrections Bill we're gonna look at have does it address penalties at all in that bill?
Yeah, it
Currently?
does for for hunting and not for this specific
Yeah.
issue, but
But
yes.
there is a section which addresses that in another bill.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But destroying a sign?
No, no,
Okay.
not destroying a sign. The technical correction bill has points for hunting in it.
But there's a
Not
space
with
to add
this.
to it.
That is correct. So you
Okay,
could
that's-
add there something about violating this statute. Is a 10 point, 20 point, or 30, or whatever it is violation.
Thanks.
That would assume they have hunting or fishing license. Which may be a fair assumption. I'm just
Right.
reading that.
Well, yeah.
Representative Austin. I mean Chapin.
I'm supportive of that. I think that there's. I continue to want to give wardens tools and some discretion. So that they can address some of these sort of problematic situations that we have, hopefully only in a couple of locations with a couple of people, but we clearly have some issues that we're not able to address. And so if points for situations where someone has a hunting license is a useful tool, I would support adding that in this bill.
Representative Austin.
I'd support adding it in the other bill. We were adding points, we were talking about points.
So that's a miscellaneous bill, and this
miscellaneous.
feels like more of a policy issue. That's just my thinking on it.
Do bills where you suffer some sort of penalty, like points and licenses, do they need to get looked at by judiciary? I mean, maybe not committed to the committee, but do they usually take a look? It's a penalty, if it's sort of a civil.
They get
penalty?
involved when it becomes a criminal offense usually. So I think when we made those changes with civil and criminal, like last year, 2 years ago, we were working with them. I don't know if they're gonna wanna look at the other. You wonder about, we would need additional testimony if we add this now. And that maybe it's something we let the Senate think about.
Yeah. Something for the next budget needs to read.
All right, so we do have a vote scheduled on tomorrow morning. Representative Sakowitz will be our reporter. So he's gonna be joining us via Zoom.
And Bradley.
Do you think you have clarity on the next direction, and when would you be able to have the?
Yes, and I should be able to get back to you tonight or today.
Okay, great, thanks.
Could you just re-summarize what the changes are that we're talking about to what we're looking at?
I think we're just gonna be going back to the language of version 1.1 around D at the bottom of page 2, where it's Ella has it right in front of her, or maybe Bradley does. Read it. Go ahead, Bradley.
Accidental or unintentional deviations from the requirements of subdivisions A and B of this section shall still be deemed effective to prohibit or permit by permission only hunting, fishing, trapping, or taking of game. If the notice signs or paint markings would lead a reasonable person to believe that hunting, fishing, trapping, or taking of game is prohibited on the land. Yeah, get rid of the paint markings. Yeah, yeah. I just literally read from the bill here. But yes, get rid of the paint markings.
Okay, great. I think that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have Michael O'Grady's up next, technically scheduled for 2:30. He may be able to join us sooner, depending on when he gets finished with his prior commitment. So we will recess until we can find our legislative council, or until 2:30.